I call to order the workshop for Bullhead City School Board on Thursday, June 11th, 2026 at 5:31 p.m. Roll call, present Melinda Sobrowski.
Fred Rushton here.
Charlene Diaz here.
Barb Zerzicki here.
Sheila Barnett here.
Item 1.3, fourth quarter benchmarks results. Before we start this, is it, at the school board thing, at the conference, there were several districts that were saying that they got their scores, but they were still embargoed. Have we got our scores yet?
Yes, but they're embargoed.
When are they embargoed till?
Don't know, a couple months. I mean, probably August before we can talk much about them. I can give you a general statement as we talk about these. So in some ways, okay, I'll give you a general statement. In some ways, they are our benchmarks, particularly our third quarter benchmarks, are reflected in the state testing results. Keep in mind that state testing results compared to our benchmarks, in terms of our benchmarks, include the partially proficient, proficient, and highly. The three top categories, not just the top two, okay? So we will say that. We have a couple of grade levels that are shining stars. We have growth in lots of places, but part of the reason they're embargoed at this point is that it's raw data, enough to tell us if we need to retain any third graders based on that law, you know, but they haven't pulled out kids who weren't with us at the beginning of the year. They haven't disaggregated the data yet, and that's why it's embargoed.
It's going to be embargoed until August?
Yeah, sometimes longer than that, but they tell us when it's not embargoed.
Okay.
Okay? Yes,
That doesn't make me happy, but okay.
but it's not new. It's always that way.
Yeah, it still doesn't make me happy.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so Jen is at a conference, and so she left me with these data. What? You need the clicker? Oh, okay. So I think she indicated in her report as well, our kids were tested out when we did this. And I think she also included in her board report for us to be considering next year not doing quarter four because the governor has in fact signed the bill that we won't do state testing as early as we've been doing it. We've been starting it at the end of March, and with makeups and with the scheduling and whatever, it takes 3 to 3.5 weeks. With the new change, we won't even start the testing until the second week in April, so that gives us a couple more weeks of actual testing, and then it goes into May. A couple of advantages of that: it does give us additional teaching time before testing starts. And the other thing is the inevitable state tests are over, we're done kind of attitude that kids and unfortunately employees also get will be delayed, you know, be moved back, which means it will almost be the end of the year. We're pleased about that change in the testing dates, because it does give us, you know, more time, more instructional time before we actually have to test. Another reason for us considering not doing fourth quarter testing benchmark next year, we are using DNA, and our teachers and everybody likes using DNA for our benchmarks because we get our data immediately, same day, and can start making you know, changes in instruction or support, you know, our tutoring and our support right away. State Department is kind of hanging its hat on a program called NAVI, which is produced by Pearson, who does the state testing. Next year is the year they're going to be looking at a new contract, a new 5-year contract for who will be doing the state testing. And it may or may not be Pearson. But we are required, because three of our schools are in school improvement, at certain grade levels, we're required to do NAVI. We did it this year under that requirement. We did not get the results for 3 weeks. The questions are not nearly as closely related to the standards as what we have in DNA, but we are required to use it. And so it's another test that our kids have to take. It's another test to be scheduled for our kids. So it's no wonder this year that they were tested out when we got to this. So I'll show you these results and show you the graphs, and then talk at the end of each section about how they appear relative to the goals that we had for the year. And I'm sorry I can't give you the same kind of detail that Jen could give you, because I haven't been in the data as much as she. So just a reminder of what our goals were for this year. This is, why does it not tell us? Oh, this is
Second grade.
This is everybody. Sorry. Yeah, it's all. Oh, see, I have it covered up down here. Thank you. Yeah, so this is second grade. We are also going to recommend for next year that we not do benchmark testing with second grade. We have good data that we get from Dibbles and our math screener program and those things, and we need the teaching time. We need it back. Third grade.
So how many of our third graders did we hold back?
A handful, fewer than 5. Fewer than 5. We had about 15 who were on the list. About 10 or 12 of them were either special education or ELA students who had not been with us at least 3 years, and so we're exempt from retention.
So there's 77% of our third graders are at minimally proficient.
Yeah.
On
And
the
only
fourth,
5
or on the
students.
fourth benchmark, Barb. The next graph tells us more. This graph tells you more.
Well, it's the same 77%.
Yeah, it is. It just shows you that it dropped.
But
Yeah,
the thing is, you can compare it to the others.
but what I'm saying is, there's 77% of our third graders right now in reading and language arts. That is 77% minimally proficient, and we're only holding back about 5 students.
No, I'm not saying we're only holding back 5. I'm saying we're holding back 5 based on state testing. I can't give you the number of how many we're retaining otherwise. I don't, because I don't have that data. It is not very many. And you're right. It is, this is not what we want. Okay? If these were the old-fashioned grades, you know, that 77% would be Fs.
Yeah, correct.
looks like the proficient jumped up a little bit in fourth quarter, right?
Yes, it did for,
Yeah.
They basically moved over from partially proficient.
yeah, which is
They
good.
didn't move over from minimally
Minimally.
proficient.
No.
But
So in other words, there was not the big movement that we think there was.
They moved from Ds to Cs in the old-fashioned system. It's not a direct correlation, but I
Close.
use that to give you some, some handle on what we're looking at.
At the middle school, on both classes, the fourth quarter, there's more minimally proficient than there was at the first.
Well,
Seventh grade looks a little better.
That at least looks 50-50.
And they did drop considerably though.
Some nice movement there.
I don't know.
These are the composite Dibble scores. And so this is basic reading skills. And so it shows some good movement.
We do dibbles in first and second.
We do Dibbles, we do M-Class. M-Class, we do more than just, yeah, I can do through 4. Because we've learned that we have fifth, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who don't have basic reading skills. And to help us identify which specific skills they're missing, we need to do this, the screener that tells us what they're missing so that we can backfill those skills. And I will tell you that it's particularly disappointing for me because 20 years ago, we were very successful with those basic skills and had students who went to 3rd grade and on up with all of the basic skills that they needed. We consistently had, at all of our elementary schools, pretty consistently had 10% or fewer in the red. And Charlene would remember that as well from, and so if kids have those basic reading skills, that affects every other part of their learning. Here it's broken down by grades. So in terms of our goals, get to my notes here from Jen. Overall, about the same as quarter 3. Special education was up from 1.5% to 3.2%. And significantly in fourth quarter for special ed students because 3rd quarter they were at 1.7%. So up to 3.2. Our EL students, it's a little confusing because the state only recognizes when EL students move to proficient. And we saw lots of growth with our EL students, but it wasn't, on the Azella, it wasn't enough to, for the state to recognize their growth. Our homeless students were about the same as quarter 3.
So we were looking for an increase from 26 to 45,
Yep,
and we only made 12?
yep,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I giggled, because it's really sad.
It is sad.
It is.
Very, very sad.
It's very sad. And it's the struggle we've been working on with everybody for 3 years and will continue to work on, which is that we need our students to actually demonstrate proficiency, as opposed to, the old way of, do your homework, do this test, do this project, do this whatever. If those things were not showing proficiency on the standards, then we would, then we continued to get the same results on testing, whether it's our benchmark testing or the state testing. And so it's having everybody who's doing instruction understand what their goal is, what the expectations are, and helping our kids get there. That's what we need to have happen. That's what we're working on. That's what we emphasize over this time.
What was do you remember?
I'm sorry?
What were the third quarter percentages?
Oh, I don't.
Okay. I just, Jen was here, she probably could.
Yeah, she could tell you. She gave them to me for sped because it was up, and because that was a, kind of a positive note, especially since they were up so much from third quarter to fourth quarter compared to beginning the year. So, and also EL, when we can show on our data the growth for our EL, and yet on Azella that the students take for the state, it doesn't look as wonderful because they only recognize when students move to proficient. And there are 5 categories in EL, I think, 5 levels in EL. Well, if a student moves from level 1 to level 2, that's a pretty significant growth, or level 1 to level 3. But if they don't get to level 4 or level 5 is what they're looking for proficient, then it doesn't even get recognized. Well, I don't know about you, but in a 3-year program, and we have good programs and we have good teachers. If I were a student in a 3-year program, I'd be pretty excited if I went from, if I were learning a foreign language, if I went from a level 2 to a level 4, I'd be pretty excited about that, and would feel pretty accomplished in learning the language, but not be recognized until I was considered completely proficient in the language. So, those are some of the factors that we deal with, and encourage students, because they get a little bummed out when they've worked hard and they've made big growth, and yet there's not the recognition for it. In math, 2nd grade, some significant growth there in 3rd grade.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an understatement. Oh, my.
What happened at fifth and sixth grade?
I don't know. We've talked with Ms. Sharp. She's making some personnel changes, assignment changes, and we
Can
moved
you
from
go
there.
back one slide? So that's basically saying 10 out of 188. Okay.
Yes. Well, out of 198.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 198 kids, 188 of them are not proficient.
Seventh grade made some progress.
Yeah.
How did the sixth graders go into seventh grade this year? Did they go in, or did they go in?
I don't recall. That's a good question. Yeah, Julie, what, do you recall the kids who went from sixth to seventh this year? Did they come in higher?
No.
So this is
So this
true
is real
seventh grade
growth.
growth.
Yes, this is actual growth. Seventh grade, we saw like growth with them. We won't talk about eighth grade. Eighth grade is pretty stagnant.
We will have 4 new math teachers at Fox, 5 new math teachers at Fox Creek this coming year. So the entire math department will be new.
What happened to the old teachers? They get reassigned or?
2 are internationals, 2 were internationals leaving us.
One left. Was not to stay. Oh, 2. One was having problems with her visa, so she chose not to continue to fight it. And she was doing a good
Job.
And she was doing a good job. So that was unfortunate.
7th grade teachers, so, yeah.
She was 8th grade.
She was 8th grade.
But she moved from title to 8th grade this year. So
She was getting some good results in the period of time she was there.
So what would happen if you moved the seventh grade teachers up to teach eighth grade?
They're gone. We have all of our
Department.
teachers in Fox Creek are new next year, all of them. Which may be a good thing, actually.
Statistically, it's not.
No, but it could be. We don't know. Okay, so John's notes on that. Second grade, down 5% from quarter 3. Overall, 3rd through 8th grade, up 4.6% from quarter 3. She had your answers for the question you asked about the ELA, but only for math. SPED was about the same as quarter 3. Homeless was up about 1.6% from quarter 3. And this is science. One of the things that we are focusing on this coming year in terms of professional development is not just how to read data, but what to do with it. How do we take the data and translate that into better instruction and into better results for students? So there'll be training on that.
Maybe we should get our 7th grade science teachers to teach math.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
That's true.
Eighth grade science teachers could teach 8th grade math.
Yeah.
Okay. There is one more slide, but you're going to be dealing with it in a little bit, so. Not our best reports.
We've gone through 4 benchmarks,
On a new test system. Mm-hmm.
and with the exception of 7th grade math and 7th grade science, 8th grade science.
Exactly.
So maybe we don't even need any benchmarks at all. You know, maybe it's better just not to know, and maybe better just to let people teach.
Well, I mean, that's a thought.
Because we've been doing PD, because you've said in the past, in PD, we've been doing, teaching how to read standards and how to teach the standards and how to read data, and you say with this, yeah.
And now they need to know what to do with the data.
And we haven't been doing that with the teachers?
Well, we had, but the thing is, if they didn't know how to read it, then you don't know what to do with it if you don't know how to read it. And we had an amazing number of folks who didn't know how to even read the data or interpret the data. So we will be focusing on, now that we've trained you, and of course we'll need to train our new people if they don't already have those skills. And okay, what do we do with it now? And that's what they say to us. You know, okay, now we read it, but we don't know what to do with it.
If I was a parent
Absolutely.
of any of these children,
Absolutely.
with the exception of 7th grade math, 7th grade science, and 7th and 8th grade science, I would say, you guys didn't do anything for me this year. You didn't do anything for my child this year.
I can't argue with that.
So, you know, like, I'm surprised we don't have every parent in here yelling and screaming about getting something done to change this system, because I've been on the board at least 6 years, probably more.
8.
And nothing has changed, Carolyn. Nothing has changed.
I totally
We
understand.
spent, what was it, $3 million on a program?
More than that.
And nothing has changed.
And
So adding rules doesn't seem to change what happens.
Adding rules.
Adding steps to go through, or rules to how to read the data, or what to do with the data, that doesn't seem to make any difference at all. Adding those rules to what the teacher has to do doesn't seem to make any difference. So maybe, this is just a maybe, we should just ease up, take away 50% of these these rules that we put on teachers and let teachers teach.
And let them do the nothings that they were doing before, that some of them were doing before?
Well, it hasn't changed adding the rules.
Okay, keep in mind that when we move to this kind of assessment, not the assessments themselves, but keep in mind that when we moved to the idea of saying proficiency is what is important, and not just turning in assignments and doing those things and having the old grading system where, think about it, we had kids who got A's and B's and C's and got and D's and got promoted who didn't know these things either.
No, they didn't.
Okay? Now that we are saying you all need to be focusing on these things, okay, for folks who've been with us, that's a systemic change. 3 to 5 years. Should we be seeing some changes already? Absolutely. But one of the things you are seeing is more folks on improvement plans because they're not producing in the classroom. And that was not happening before. And that sounds punitive, and it's not intended to be punitive. It's intended to be, look, you're not getting the job done. Here's what we need you to do. We're going to help you do it and move you on. We're only 3 years into this process. Now, would I like to have seen us farther than this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Much further than this. Am I despairing? No. No. We need to stay the course and keep moving, because if we change now, if we make another big significant change, the timeline starts over. Anytime you make a significant change in what you are doing, you start the timeline over. Okay? And we would be throwing away 3 years' work. And I'm not willing to do that.
No, we wouldn't be throwing away
Right.
3 years. The things that have been important to the teachers will stick. The things that are unimportant to a teacher will not stick. So the people who have been through this for 3 years have picked up the pieces that are making them teach better. Okay?
For some of them.
The people who have not liked the system or it doesn't fit their personality have not picked up on those things.
But we're not here to pick up on teachers' personalities.
But Carolyn, as a former teacher, I myself, if I was told that this is the way I had to, in fact, I'll be honest, that was the reason I retired, was because we were changing at the time and they turned around and we went back to the old way. But I was told that next year we will be teaching the lessons this way and you will be covering this lesson this day, doing this, this, and this. And I said, but that is not my teaching style. That is not what I have been successful with for 25 years. So I am a professional that you have hired me to teach. I have always met my standards. So why are you telling me that I have to do something that I'm going to be uncomfortable with? And if the teacher is not comfortable with their teaching style, then the kids sense it. Where if you hire a professional and the teachers are comfortable with the style and their style of teaching, the kids are more relaxed and more open and more acceptable to what's going on in that classroom, I feel.
Well, it really has more to do with the relationship between the teacher and the students.
Right.
And yeah, and you're right to a certain extent. But the thing is, if that person if their style is just to do fun and games, and I'm not saying that's your style, Barb.
No.
Please understand, I'm not doing that.
But that was definitely not my style.
No, I know that. But when I came back into this position and I walked into classrooms, and please keep in mind, I'm not painting every teacher with the same brush, okay?
But we are when we're making them do the same exact thing all the time.
We're not making them do the exact same thing all the time. We are expecting them to teach what needs to be taught. And there's still room for some art in that, not just science, but we do expect them to do what scientific research says works. So I'll give you an example. At one of our sites, one grade level, okay, I'm not going to say which site or which grade level, is actively not doing what the research says we should do, what we know from that I know because I have this historical knowledge, that I know works because we made it work. It did work, and everybody liked that it worked, and they're not doing it. And guess what? In the data you just looked at, it was one of the lowest classes, one of the lowest grade levels. Okay? So,
Has to be 5th grade.
not going to say.
5th grade was the lowest.
Not going to say. So what I'm saying to you is there's still room for art in the teaching. But if it's all about the art and the fun and the games and the I want to teach this because it's my favorite part of whatever it is I teach, and as an educator, you know there have been people like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That
3 of
we used
you
to
who
have
are
little teams,
educators
we call
know
them.
that there are folks who were that way,
The little
and
kings
some
and
who
stuff, yes.
still want to be that way, okay? And, you know, then those are not the folks we need to be working with our students.
Because I'm looking at, I taught 8th grade, well, 7th and 8th grade. And the other 7th and 8th grade math teachers that I taught with, if you walked into, they could not teach in my style. My classroom to several people was chaos. Because I had my students involved, I had them working, I had them talking. The other teachers had their style, but both our students did well because we were both allowed to do what we felt comfortable, getting the standards across to our students. We covered our standards every year. We knew what we were told, you have to cover this by this date. We made sure we covered them, but we covered them in a style that we were comfortable with. We weren't told, this is the style you have to use.
And we haven't told our folks that. We've told them some things that they have to do, yes. Okay, so for instance, we still expect them to do direct instruction.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I
well,
hope so.
unfortunately, 2 years ago, when we were introducing some new elements to the model of instruction, we had folks mistakenly believe that they didn't have to do that anymore. Okay, and it was a little while before we caught on to that. And so we've been working on saying, you have to do direct instruction. You have to model what it is that's happening. The new parts that we were adding that are similar to what you were saying you did, which is getting the students involved and having the teamwork and that kind of thing, is one piece of the instructional process. It's not the entire instructional process. So we're backfilling with our own teachers on, you need to do these pieces. You can't just walk in and hand students, here's today's objective, have your team discuss and move forward. They don't know where they're going with that if there's no direct instruction.
Oh, no, I'm not.
So the pieces of what must be taught, we say, yes, we expect this to be done.
Yeah, like, I totally
But is
agree.
there room for individual teachers to insert their style? Well, yes, of course. So if for some reason you all are thinking that that's gone away, then I'm sorry that we've allowed that to become
Now, see,
a
the classrooms I've
focal
obs-
point.
Yeah, the classrooms I've observed, I've walked in and I've watched them start the classes, do the lesson. I've gone to another classroom and it's the same identical thing.
Well, if you're following the lesson structure, it's going to be very similar.
Okay.
It's going to be very similar. It should be very similar.
Okay, so
So,
let's
Yeah.
kind of end this conversation a
Sure.
little bit and redirect. What's going to happen next year so that we get to 45% or 35% or whatever those percentages that were set? What are we going to do to get there? Because we have not gotten there.
no, we haven't.
So what are we going to do to get there?
We're going to stay the course. We're going to continue our professional development. We are going to continue to expect folks to do the pieces of lessons that they're expected to do and to use the resources that they have to do so. Now, can I give you a guarantee? I would love to give you a guarantee. I would love to be able to do that. But I'm not naive enough to sit here and do that. You know, I'm not. We will continue to move forward. Now, that means catching up our new people. Okay, so for instance, Mrs. Vogt has 5 new math teachers, four grade levels and a title math teacher, right? And we'll bring them up to speed and we'll depend on their expertise as well, and do what we can do. Language arts, you've got any new language arts?
I'm not putting it out there. No, we're not talking about language arts, leave them alone, please. Okay.
We will have an entirely new social studies department, well, at least 3/4 of a social studies department new. And in some ways, that's good. In some ways, it's good that we can bring people in and say, this is how we do things here. And not have to fight what you're talking about, Melinda, which does happen. You know, when people go, well, you know, I was here when you came and I'll be here when you leave. That kind of attitude, or, you know.
I'm not talking that.
No, I know that, but we do have some folks who sandbagged because they were used to things. If things didn't work in a year or two, then they went away. Charlene's nodding because she remembers those days. You know, and so we were constantly in a new cycle, every year or every 2 years, changing, thinking we didn't get the results we wanted, so we're going to change again, which means you're right back at that beginning point again. So we'll do everything we can to keep that from being a factor.
Carolyn, I know you guys do this, but continuing to focus on teaching to the standards and understanding the standards, I think
Yes.
is really, really important.
Yes.
I just of the student teachers that I have, you know, that is probably one of the biggest conversations we have, is that they're reading a standard and not, and interpreting it in the wrong way. And you know, and that's where those it's important for those PLC meetings so that everybody talks about it so they understand exactly what that standard's saying and what is expected. I think with so many new teachers, that has to really be something that continues to.
Yes.
I mean, I know we do it, but it just needs to continue.
It's why we have the coaches in those PLC meetings and frequently the principals in those meetings, to keep the focus on what the conversation needs to be, not on behavior management of certain students, not on whatever, but that they're talking about what is it that we expect kids to know, and then what is the demonstration? What do we have them doing to demonstrate proficiency? Okay, demonstrate it.
Well, and I know I'm
That's
in the
hard, too.
minority here, but there are actually pockets of improvement.
Yes.
And which I was excited to see.
Thank you.
Overall, the scores are nowhere near where I'd like to see them, but there are pockets of
Yes.
improvement. And I would guess that if we went back and looked 3 years ago, those scores would probably be worse than they are right now. They're not good, but there are those pockets, and so those kinds of things we need to celebrate and say, okay,
We do.
we're
Well, and
you know, it's a slow process, but
Yes.
we're moving in the right direction.
And remember our conversation earlier, a while back, about the movement of students in that red section. You know, we're talking from 0% to 60%. And you can't see that on those graphs. You can't see on there the kids who moved from 10% to 50%, that kind of thing. So, and sometimes those are the pockets that, you know, first of all, we don't see them in these data, but those are the celebrations that we have for those kids. I'd love to be able to do the comparison you're talking about, but once again, it's a different assessment, the
Right.
Galileo, and so,
Yeah.
you know, and this year with DNA, the new DNA, Jen worked very hard to make sure that the level of difficulty of questions on these assessments match the level of difficulty on the state testing. One of the things I told you that we weren't real happy about having to do the NAVI testing, first of all, because it's an additional test, but one of the things that and we didn't like, we had to wait 3 weeks to get any kind of results that we could act on. But beyond that, the level of difficulty of the questions were nowhere near what the state testing is. And it's from the same company that writes the state
which
tests. So it was misleading, you know, for our kids, so, and for our teachers. Okay, that's kind of a side point, but it's still one that is a little frustrating for us, because as long as we have schools in improvement, we will be required to take that at certain grade levels in certain subjects.
I do like that idea, though, of maybe dropping that fourth benchmark, because, you know, when we're talking March, these kids know 3 weeks of of dibbles and 2 weeks of this, and, you know, and by the end, they're done. They're ready to.
Well, and it does take away instructional time. So, you know, some consideration even of what Melinda said about, you know, maybe, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here, going to 2 benchmarks as opposed to this many. I don't know. I think it's, you know, I think it's worth some discussion, because every time we have a benchmark or a test, a required test, is one less day of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
And when you only have 150 days to work with, every day that is for something other than instruction, you know, shortens that opportunity.
Okay.
Okay?
Fred, do you have any comments? You haven't heard anything from you.
Well, I originally became interested in getting involved in the school board because I met a young lady who had a hard time adding 11 and 15 and 10 without grabbing her phone and using her phone. And you know, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, I'm quite sure, but I know that my education is, I learned that 1 + 1 is 2, and I know you guys are all educators, and I have respect for what you all have done. I don't understand a lot of the things that I hear here, but my concern is for the students.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of our concerns are, but sometimes I think the discussions kind of lose track of that. What would happen if we tried just getting back to basics, the stuff that worked for Melinda to learn and me, and the rest of the ladies here, and you? You know what? I don't know why the education seems to be so much harder for the students than when I was going to school. I know things have changed. Society has changed a lot. But I just am with all of my
1 + 1 is
colleagues.
still 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with all of my colleagues here, I'm really, I wish I didn't see so much red. I'm encouraged to see the yellow and the green. I'd like to see a whole lot more blue. And I gotta believe that the teachers are frustrated too by this, by the results too, because I'm certain that the results of these tests are not pleasing to the educators as well, the teachers. So I just, you know, I keep on thinking of Patch Adams. I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, but, you know, it'd be really cool if we could get a few Patch Adams people going and using unconventional methods, but getting the ideas across for the kids. However, I do have to say that, you know, we have to have hope for the future, because if we don't have hope for the future, we might as well all pack it in and go home. And the future's our kids, and we've got to get something going to give them a fair shake and give them a chance at life. So, and I know it's hard being in this rural district and not having the resources that some of the other districts do, but I do believe that this district is full of teachers who do have a heart for the kids and administrators that do have a heart for the kids. And so, you know, surely there's something that we can do. There has to be. There has to be something that we can do.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Sheila, how about you? You haven't joined in.
So I met with Jennifer Lott for over an hour to try to kind of figure some of this stuff out myself. Have we ever actually asked the teachers their opinion as to why the test scores are what they are? And what they think, why? I'm blown away. I just don't understand. I feel like we're not even doing our job as educators with where we're at with these scores. But why? There's a why behind it. There's got to be a reason why. Is it because the kids aren't getting the support at home? They're not getting enough time to practice math skills, to master them? There's got to be a reason somewhere why. And I'm just wondering if the teachers have ever said, hey, it's maybe because of this, or it's maybe because of that. And we tried to figure out the why, not the how. I feel like we're always talking about how are we going to do it? Well, how are we going to do it if we don't know the why? And I think that's our problem, is we really need to figure out what the why is.
I think that, like, the teachers have said, like, we need more help, like deciphering the data and all that. We have a lot of data, okay? A lot of components go into that data. The same is true as to why the students are performing on these tests. There are so many factors that play into it. It's one test, 1 week long, one snippet of time. You guys sat there and watched my Life Academy kids come up here and do oral presentations, and you were blown away by that. But if you look at their test scores, it doesn't show that, right? Our kids are learning, our kids are performing, our kids are growing. We have to stop looking at one set of data. We have to stop looking at this test that's done on the computer, that's done 4 times a year. The kids, by the 4th time this year, I will tell you, those Life Academy kids wanted to revolt against me when I said, I'm so sorry, guys, but you have to do one more. Right? We have to look at everything. We have to look at attendance. We have to look at home life. We have to look at where they came from, where they're at now, how far they've gone, what are their mental health issues, you know, all of these different things. And then try to teach this child in the classroom and hope that they get it. Our teachers try. They try very hard. They show up and they put in the effort. And yes, it's frustrating when they don't get it. We're in a district where 20% of our student population is qualified for special education. Our specialized programs are growing at an enormous rate.
There are so many factors, we can't just say, this is the reason why. It's because your teachers didn't do what they were supposed to, or they're not getting on board, they're not doing this. There are so many factors.
And that's what I'm saying, is we need to figure out more of that versus just the test score, because we can have a conversation in oral test, and you could get 150%. The same written test, you might get 5%.
Exactly.
So it's beyond just the test scores themselves, but the why behind, so then we can figure out what more do we need to do, or how more, or is it the just the more factors?
And like, we're trying, like as an administrative team, we're trying to tackle chronic absenteeism. We can't force parents to bring their kids to school. We have kids with 30, 40, 60 days absent in a single school year. When you're absent that much in kinder, first, and second grade, you've lost all of your foundational skills. So now you're in third grade and that teacher's trying to make up 3 years of lost education.
I think that's what we're talking, we are not. I don't think there's anybody up here who has said anything nasty about teachers.
No,
If anything, we've been very, very supportive. We're just saying that maybe, I think let me paraphrase, and if I'm wrong, please stop me. What I think you're saying is, let's go to the source and listen to some of what they perceive as being the problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Not that they're not, I mean, I know a lot of the teachers, and I think they're doing the very best they can, but there's a piece missing. Pieces missing.
Lots.
And that's kind of,
Lots.
can we figure something out to, if it's the students, we need to support getting more parent, I know a lot of it's the parents need to be doing more with the kids too, I get that. But I just feel like there's some disconnect somewhere. And I think the only way we're gonna find out is if we start asking, and not necessarily just the teachers, just asking in general. And
Okay.
I know how testing goes, so some people are really good at it and some aren't.
So, take with a couple grains of salt the things that I've said and the things that everybody has said. But understand that something is wrong. And you admit that.
Absolutely.
Something is wrong.
A lot of things.
Let's try and figure out how to mitigate the things that are wrong. But I've got something here that's going to put some smiles on faces.
That's not right now. That's in.
What is it?
No.
No, we're
It's
still in
on
the
my paper.
workshop.
We're still in the workshop.
We're still in the workshop.
Yeah, but it's still in my paper. Okay,
No.
fine,
I think it's supposed to be during,
fine.
I mean, I don't know, is it on your agenda there?
Uh-huh.
Where?
So let's move on. Let's move on to 4.1, Section G, Policy Revisions.
You mean 1.4?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1.4.
Madam President and board members, humongous,
Yeah, I know.
section.
I know.
Let's talk about this.
So, we're not going to go through these.
No,
Obviously, we're not going to go through
I
all
know,
of
it was
them.
such a
I
great-
tried to, I spent a week going through these, comparing the old ones, comparing our own, because there are some that we've made our own, made our own versions of, and I've recommended some to you for us to consider keeping our own as opposed to the things that are there. And over half of what's in this 500 pages are the deletions, not just revisions and whatever. So there's some good things there in terms of what they've done. Lots of good things, actually. It's just that it's the biggest section of policy. So I certainly don't expect you to go through all of it, but I was hoping that I could be helpful in directing you to the pieces that, and giving you some signals about what would not take you a week to go through. And so if you've got questions or specific things that you'd like to discuss, this is the time for us to do that.
To be real honest, I made it through about 100 pages.
Yep.
So I'm not even ready to discuss any of these. To be very
Okay.
honest with you, it's taking a
Yeah.
while.
It does.
As
I
you
told you,
know.
it took me a week,
Yeah.
right? Literally. I mean, it was at least 40 hours of
Yeah, and so
of
I
doing
am
whatever,
not,
so.
I'm not even ready to talk about any of this, but
I got about halfway through it and developed a headache, and I was having a migraine from it, and I just
Of course.
said, that's it, it's not.
And that was probably just looking at the revision ones, not looking at the deletion ones, just looking at the ones that I said
I'd
you need to
started
look
in-
at.
I had started into some of the deletion ones, but then it got to the point that I was having flashes in my eyes, and I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm not continuing with this.
Well, I mean, truthfully, you didn't need to look at the deletions
Yeah.
because they built the things. I got far enough in the first couple of days to recognize that they really were not, because initially when I saw the list, when I saw this thing, I'm going, wait a minute, they're stripping us of all of these policies that give us procedures for our non-certificated staff, because that whole section of GD, whatever. But it didn't take me very long to realize that they had simply moved them, and then had improved the wording on many of them. So I thought, well, I could save the board a whole lot of time by saying, don't even look at the ones that say deleted. Only look at the ones that they're saying to revise or new. But if you do have any questions or comments, Sheila, it looked like you had some notes and.
Oh, I went through some of them. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to
Oh, yeah.
do all of
The
that
blue ones.
highlighting, and because it did make it a lot easier.
Yes.
I know that there was one section about, I believe it was alcohol, and that was deleted. But is that going to be somewhere else?
It was
Okay, that's
moved.
what I figured.
It was moved to another
Because I'm like,
section.
how can they delete?
No, they didn't.
Okay,
They didn't.
I figured.
And as I said, that was my initial concern, was that there were some significant policies and procedures that we depend on all the time, that, they had marked them on here as delete. But it was only when I started reading the descriptions and then started looking at them myself that I realized that really what they had done was combined. They had combined them. And truthfully, that will make it easier, so that I will know this is the policy I go to if it has to do with X. And it applies to whether it's a certificated employee or a non-certificated employee, because then within that policy or within that regulation, it's broken down. Here's the policy that applies to all employees. Here are the procedures that you use for this policy that go for our certificated people, and then here are the procedures for our non-certificated people. And so it makes it really nice because I'm not flipping back and forth between two big sections of this set of policies. There, it's together. So that and it had to have taken them months to have done what they did. So there's some real good moves.
and I appreciated the blue lines.
Yeah.
I really did.
Good.
Yeah.
Because that's what I began to look for, but it's
Yeah,
still,
it really
It's still overwhelming.
it's very
Ca-
tedious.
Carolyn, were there any policies in there that were deleted completely, that were not moved?
No, I
Okay.
could not
Okay.
find any. They incorporated them some way or another into
Okay.
others. And there were several where there was a policy, and then there were 2 or 3 other policies that spoke to the same thing. They just moved them all into the one, which makes it nicer. Because I will tell you, and I'll give you an example. There were several policies that had to do with codes of conduct and ethics, ethical behavior, professional behavior. There were 3 or 4 of them. It's nice to have them all in one, and not have to go fishing through to find the multiple locations. So they did that. But I did want you to know that those that I put there that we had just worked on or have worked on in the last 2 years, that really are very specific to our district. They were already vetted by our attorney. They cover the same things that are in the ones, but they have some specific things in them that apply to us, that I really would like for you to consider keeping those as opposed to adopting the ASBA's version. And that's why I included them in the same set so that you could look at them and compare. So, you know, I'm guessing that you would like to continue this to workshop next month?
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and that's fine.
Please.
And that's fine. I have started working on the employee handbook for next year. And in the employee handbook, you know, obviously it doesn't cover every policy, but it involves a lot of policies from this section of the policy book. And when it does, for the title of the little section that I have in the handbook, I reference the policy that backs up that statement. I've already started changing some of those references to match these changes. And I had intended to bring that handbook to you next month. So they won't be approved policies at that point. So I will make sure that I state to employees that, you know, those references are tentative based on, you know, the decisions that you'll be considering.
I wouldn't stop doing that.
No, I won't. But
Because what I've seen, what I have read is, yeah,
yeah.
but I'm not ready.
And that's okay. That's absolutely
not
okay. It's pretty whelming.
And I don't know if anybody else is or not, but I'm just not.
I agree.
Okay.
Reading it on a computer makes it harder for me too.
Yeah.
Might get my eyes
Yes.
get tired quicker. So.
Yes,
But I wasn't
absolutely.
going to print out 449 pages.
No, I wasn't
No. Well, and if you want to come read them, I have them. So you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, I'm not reading too well.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
get that. I get that.
So we'll just hold that off until.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
Item 1.5, adjourn the workshop. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn the workshop.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Fred Rushton.
Aye, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, I want to take 5 because I need to go get a bottle of water out of the refrigerator.
Okay.
And anybody else want a bottle of water?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Sheila?
good.
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
So far.
Fred?
I'm gonna go check the water in my radiator.
Oh, goodness.
It's that time of year. Time is it?
Because nobody stepped up.
It is 6:43.
6:43?
That one we need to keep.
Okay. Ladies, ready?
We'll give the teachers classroom grants.
Let me put these back on. To order the regular session of Bullhead City School Board on Thursday, June 11th, 2026 at 6:43 PM. All those, excuse me, all those in favor. Roll call. Present Melinda Sabrowski.
Fred Rushton here.
Charlene Diaz here.
Barbara Zerzicki here.
Sheila Burnett here.
Would you guys please stand and say the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okie dokie. Citizens present.
None.
I don't see any citizens present, so I think we're safe to move on, right? Call to the public. I don't see any public here.
Oh, my goodness. Look at all those donations.
But we do have a massive set of donations. I just, when I looked at this, I thought, whoa, somebody was out soliciting for Desert Valley. But I got, if it was that part of that was that
Teacher appreciation, yeah. Yeah.
That's what I figured after I looked
Yeah.
at some of them. It's phenomenal what the community does, and I really appreciate it. I think the board appreciates it.
We have a great community for
Yeah, we do.
support.
Very supportive of us and the teachers
But I
and the
see some,
kids.
I see some donations that aren't there again. The other bikes that were donated to the other schools. Diamondback's the only one listed.
You only put one of the sheets? Oh, wait, okay. Yeah, she only lists the ones that she actually gets from the sites, so we'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Madam President, and this falls on me because I didn't get it to Cassie in time. Next month, you'll also have a thank you for Kiwanis and for Grace and Lee Hecht because they underwrote the Fox Creek field trip to the State Capitol building a few weeks ago. I think Kiwanis paid for the bus and the Hechts paid for the meals. It was the Hechts, not Make Bullhead Better. They did it privately. So we'll have that thank you, which was a sizable chunk of change on next month's thank you list.
Thank you, Lynn. That's nice. Even here, you know, it would be nice to read, but it was nice to hear too. So thank you.
That was on the record because it was my oversight.
Well, on behalf of the schools, thank you very much to everybody who contributed the whole school year.
Yes.
The whole school year. I need a motion to adopt the agenda, and this is where I put the movement in, right? I would like to move, I keep doing that, executive session, both executive sessions up to right before the superintendent's report. And my reasoning is that by the time we get to those, we're all so tired that it's not, my listening skills are not good. So I'd like to move those up with your approval. So whoever does the motion, either
Where did
keep-
you want to move them to, Melinda?
right before the superintendent's
Right
report.
now.
After 2.7.
Right, right after 2.7. Next thing for us to do.
Because usually Carolyn does such a good job of keeping me awake that, you know, that's a good place for me, but it's up to you guys.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion, please, that we move item number 6 in its entirety, 7, 8, and 9 in its entirety, to immediately follow agenda item 2.7.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zerzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, now I got to get this item 6.
Did we do 2.7?
Read my stuff.
You just did it.
We just did it.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
That's what we just voted on.
I'm trying to find executive, oh,
6.1.
6.1.
It actually would be 5 as well.
5.1.
Oh, sorry, 5.1.
Pursuant to ARS, yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah.
So I amend my motion to include 5 as well.
You'll need to vote again.
Yeah. we
Yeah,
need
I'll
to
second
vote
that
again.
motion.
All those in favor, I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Alfred Rushton?
Wait, what are we voting on?
He's adding 5.1 to be moved up right now. Also.
When I made my motion to add all the executive sessions,
You didn't,
I
put-
did
you
not
didn't put
include item 5.
Oh,
So I'm just amending it to
amended
include
it,
item 5.
gotcha.
And we need
All
a
right.
second on that.
You got a second?
Do we have a second?
Yes,
I
Charlene?
second.
All those in favor, I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Alfred Rushton?
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay. 5.1, pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3, the board may vote to hold executive session, and I think that's what we're going to do, to discuss or consult with the district's attorney for legal advice on issues relating to termination or of employee Stephen Price's teaching contract for school year 27. Yeah, fiscal year 27. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
I make a motion, we move into executive session.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor, I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Alfred Rushton?
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Those of you guys Need a motion to reconvene into public session.
I make a motion, we reconvene into public session.
I'll
Is there-
second.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Zabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, I have a motion to make. I move to accept the statement of charges for the dismissal of teacher Stephen Price from his employment at Bullhead City School District. The dismissal of Mr. Price from his employment, subject to his right to a hearing if he requests one. We would authorize the superintendent to deliver the statement of charges to Mr. Price. We would also authorize the superintendent to work with the district's legal counsel to obtain the services of a hearing officer to conduct a due process hearing for Mr. Price if he requests one.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, all those in favor? I'm Melinda Zabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
Charlene Diaz.
Abstain, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, motion is passed. Please make the correction and send that to Mr. Price. Okay. Okay. The superintendent's no.
7.5.
There's 7.5.
5.
Excuse me. 7.5, convene into executive session to discuss the superintendent's performance pay for fiscal year 26 pursuant to ARS 36431.03, A1, discussion or consideration of employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, demotion, dismissal, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of a public officer, appointee, or employee of any public body except that, with the exception of salary discussions, an officer, appointee, or employee may demand that the discussion or consideration occur in a public meeting. Do I have a motion to move to executive session?
Madam President, I move that we adjourn into executive session.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Zabrowski.
Need a second.
We
I'll
need a
second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry I jumped the gun on that one. Haven't done that since the last meeting, I think. I'm Melinda Zabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, here we go. motion to reconvene into public session?
I'll make a motion that we reconvene into public session.
Second it.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay.
Now we gotta go back to consent agenda.
We need a
Superintendent's
motion,
reports.
what to do with the superintendent's performance pay.
I make a motion that we give Dr. Stewart the promotion.
Performance pay.
Performance pay, whatever, the performance pay. Yes, the promotion. We're promoting you to superintendent.
What do I get promoted to?
You get promoted to superintendent number 2. Senior superintendent.
Oh, okay.
Or lead superintendent.
Somebody told me the other day that there's something called a superior intendant.
Oh, okay.
For your income.
Well, we can promote you to superintendent.
Been that too.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Thank you.
Now we return to
2.7, 2.8.
2.8, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Superintendent's report.
Okay. Well, you have lots of reports this time from me. The typical ones, the budget ones. And then I've attached for you, or I attached for you, the clean copies for the regulations and exhibits related to Section E of the budget, of the policies that you will be considering in the old business. And what else? Work ticket report, the typical kinds of things. And I don't particularly have any updates tonight. Been busy working on handbooks and doing things to get ready to start the new year.
How is hiring going?
It's going very well. We're in good shape. We've had a couple of resignations this week. Which kind of throws a wrench in. The other good news is that, as far as we know, all of our international teachers will be here for a new teacher workshop. So that includes.
You mean they might show up on time?
Yeah, they will. And I will tell you.
Don't say that out loud.
Yeah, I know. Be very careful.
Yeah, don't say that out loud.
Well, related to that, there was a serious earthquake
in
in the
the
Philippines this past
there was.
week.
With
And
the
we've been
tsunami
checking,
and
as far as
everything.
we know, all of our folks are fine. We're at a distance from where that occurred. The other thing I will update you on is that a judge in Boston, a district judge, federal district
that's what I
judge,
was gonna ask you
ruled on the H-1B visas that $100,000 fee is actually a tax, and that the president does not have the authority to assess a tax. I did get notice from them today that, of course, that decision has been appealed. So we don't know quite what that means. But our folks that we waited for all last year for H-1B decisions all opted at their own expense to change to J-1 applications, and they will be here. So, so they will be among the folks who are coming. We've had, knock on wood, we've had really good luck with applicants this year, the number of applicants for positions, and so we have very high hopes that both positions that we had resignations for this week will be filled.
Can you explain the judges? Is that the ones that we were trying to get over here?
Yes, all
So what
last year.
happened? They're assessing a tax for that now?
Well, President Trump had signed a proclamation or executive order attaching $100,000 fee for every H-1B visa application under the belief that the folks, or that the folks that were hiring these folks, and there is a limit on those, they're about 64,000 limit for H-1B visas, but that they were being hired and brought to the U.S. because businesses and whatever could pay them less. And most of those H-1B visas are for hard-to-fill positions anyway. They're for doctors and nurses and in some cases, technical jobs, educators, and we qualify under H-1B because we have a standing working relationship with the university, with NAU, and so, so we could apply for employees under H-1B. I don't know anybody who could afford to pay a $100,000 fee. And so the attorneys general from 20-plus states had filed a court case. I, in fact, worked with the Attorney General's office for Arizona because we had these applicants, and we were being held up because of that fee. So that's how I get the news kind of before it hits the streets, because the attorneys are, the Attorney General's office is keeping me informed. So right now, it doesn't help us or hurt us. The ruling doesn't help or hurt us because, as I said, our folks decided to apply for J-1s. But it's still good to know in the future, because the advantage is H-1B visa folks are automatically on the track to become citizens, if they choose to. So, which is not the case for J-1s. J-1s have to return because that's a cultural exchange visa. So, so it's good news for us, but we knew it would be appealed. So that's really my only update.
My other question is, all the cooling towers are working?
It's working right now. It's working, and but we did file a new request for the scope of work that we originally asked for replacement of that tower. So we are in the queue for approval of that. They have tentatively approved it. So we have some pieces that we have to do. The whole thing is that none of that can happen until after July 1st, when the budget's released. And you maybe heard Lance tell me that the legislature approved the budget proposal that had been worked out between the legislators and the governor. Yep. So it will be on its way to the governor's desk for signature tomorrow, and that includes the funding for the State Facilities Board. However, that's never sufficient, but that's why we wanted to be in the queue early.
But they did support education this time.
Yes, a little better. They didn't cut us. They didn't cut us like before. So we'll take it. Yeah, we'll take it.
I have a question about the DENT project. How are things going there, or are they just kind of stagnant?
I met this week. Actually, we had a visit this week from the folks at Pronghorn. From Prescott Valley. We met, and then we went up to the den. They have at this point, just a general kind of proposal, but they will be bringing us a proposal in the next 6 weeks or so. That would allow us to proceed with a lease purchase process. And they would get the financing.
Awesome. How is the occupancy? Are we full there?
We will be when we come back, when folks come back. It will be international teachers, because those are the folks who have applied and who qualify for the 3 current houses.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we happened to sit down at the conference with her. Did she tell you?
Yeah. And then Sheila came and was part of the meeting yesterday, which was nice, because then the board has has representation at that meeting, and then also can share with you the kinds of conversation that we had. If when we get a little further, then there'll be some negotiation, because the pricing that they were talking about is a little steep, so there would have to be some negotiation.
Well, maybe Sheila will talk we have to
Sharon.
update.
Sharon's wonderful.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time with Sharon.
Yeah, she's really good to
Yeah,
work
days
with.
there.
Sit down at the table.
I know, I think that's great. Yeah.
M&O's coming out all right for the end of the school year?
Yes. It's,
We're not over, under, or?
well, we don't have the kind of rollover that I would like to have. However, we're in the black. And, and by the way, after I talked with you last month about covering some losses in our child care center, I realized that we had not applied funding that we had gotten from First Things First to that budget. And so we did that, and that helped significantly. So it had been sitting there, and we just hadn't transferred it over to the right budget. So not the carryover I would like. However, we're fine. And actually, when the proposed budget that you're going to be looking at tonight, because of that anticipated 2% increase from the legislature, which they ended up doing, and the fact that our average daily attendance membership went up the last 2 months of the school year. So our principals and our teachers and our people were doing everything they could to get kids to school. Every time that goes up by one student, and we're talking an average, so every time that goes up by one student, that's $5,300. And, and you kind of go, well, okay, but when it goes up 10, that's a teacher. And so that helped us with that budget. So actually, when you look at that proposed budget, and I know you all like to look at those percentages over on the right-hand side, and I do too, and then the one at the bottom, the difference in the proposed budget for next year and our current budget is nowhere near as different as, a drop in percentages as I thought it would be. So, and of course, that's based on our current numbers, and it will fluctuate based on enrollment once we open the year, but it's really nice to have some cushion to start the year.
And Chartwell's is staying with us?
Absolutely. This will be year 3 of a 5-year contract, so
So that
it's
means
all good.
maybe they'll fix us dinner sometime, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carolyn, I have
Yeah.
a question on student dress, the JICA-RA proposal there. When I was,
I hate when that happens.
How come I get that all the time?
And the most inconvenient time,
Time.
right?
Always.
Yeah.
Just lucky.
It happened last meeting too, to her.
Yeah,
That
it
it
did.
decided in the middle of the meeting to,
it's trying to tell us, your meeting's over with, you've been out here long enough, guys, it's time to go home.
It was about the same time, too.
Yeah. After 3 hours, they figure it's long enough.
so do you need to see it to ask me?
I just had a question, and I don't know if it's typographical, but it talked about the clothes that the students could wear, the pants, the shorts, the skirts with no holes in, and then the next sentence said, no overalls or coveralls or,
Right. That's not a change. That's been this
No,
way for years.
but, okay, no coverall, overall pants, or,
There are
or
overall
skirts.
skirts. There are overall skirts.
so it's
Yeah, yeah,
overall
yeah.
skirts, not, okay. Because I'm going, wait a minute, you said they could wear skirts here, but now you're
No.
saying they
Yeah,
can't.
no.
so,
No,
okay.
there are overall skirts.
But they're very, very short
Yeah.
skirts.
Yeah.
usually.
They tend to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tend to be.
Okay.
And then, and.
Of course, pajama pants, I
One of the changes is, we had a thing about shorts and having a 5-inch inseam. Nobody wants to measure inseams,
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, so we just made it say the same thing as
Yeah.
for skirts and dresses, that it has to be fingertip length. And I'll guarantee you that, that's more than 5 inches of inseam
Yeah.
for most
Yeah.
normally proportioned people. So.
That's fine. That was the
And a
only-
couple of other changes, but they were very minor changes,
Yeah.
and they were requested by our leadership team, and so, we went with it.
Yeah, no problem. That was that was the only question. I just-
Thank you.
It's like, wait a minute, you got skirts here, but then you're saying no skirts here.
No,
but-
it's,
but it's
and you're
overall
right, it
skirts.
does sound weird, but
Yeah.
yeah, there are overall skirts. Okay?
Any other questions for Dr. Stewart? Are you sure?
You don't want to talk
there
about
were a
all
lot
those,
of things
you don't
on
want to
the
talk
paper.
about all those regulations and exhibits? You don't want to
No,
talk
I do
about
not
those,
want to talk
really?
about any
No,
of
thank
those
you.
regulations. Okay, all right, so moving on then. Yeah, we're board member input, right?
Yeah, you are.
I found, well, Sheila and I and Barb at the last conference, we found some really good stuff, Fred. This is for you and Charlene and for you guys to chime in, because I think
It's one of the best conferences we've had in a long time.
I think that this is a place to start for us going out in the community, because this is all fact-based, and it's all about Arizona and stuff that we can talk about. The other thing that before we do that, the other thing that was considered at the conference was community involvement by the school board. And
Sheila?
Sheila, too many CHs here, has given us some really good stuff. This is the stuff sort of that we came up with, this is all the Post-its, I'm sure, that we came up with when we were at AEE. I didn't double check everything because I just got this net, but I will double check. No, I won't. But it was really interesting, and then she came up with some possible questions that we might get asked about this. And I'm sure that this is going to get passed on to our illustrious PIO, right?
Yes.
But basically, I stopped in and I talked to Lance earlier. Was it, it was this week or last week? Okay, well, I get lost in time. And we talked about, having a central focus for each and every one of us as we stood up in front of people, that this would be the focus of the board. And at the moment I was listening to Lance, and what was running through my head is we need a 3-hour retreat, okay? Where we would actually, and this comes from Lance, so God only knows, but anyway, we'd have us a 2 to 3 hour retreat where we would actually be presenting and then being asked some nasty questions so that we would get some experience with the possible outcome of what we're doing. Am I paraphrasing right, Lance?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't recall the 3-hour retreat, but
Basically role-playing.
Yeah, and let me tell you something, Lance can be nasty. So
Lance goes me?
basically, it would be good for
Never.
all 4 of us, or 5 of us, to have
6 of us?
7, because Carolyn would
Yeah.
be forced to be here, because we'd have a quorum. She has
Yes.
to she has to be the mom. Basically, I'm thinking 2 to 3 hours, Lance, would that be good enough?
we could, I think we needed a little bit of brainstorming before anything is set up.
Okay. All right. So you get Sheila's list, and then do you want me to just come in, or do you want me to assign one of my handy-dandy compatriots here?
Either way, I do want to remind you that after July 1st, my hours will be a little bit limited.
Okay, so
moving
we'll
forward.
take you out to breakfast.
Yeah, I'm happy to put in as much time as necessary, but
Well, we want to be good at this. Okay. The other question he came up with was, how are you going to separate yourself, and that for Sheila, Barb, and I, not for you, Fred, not for Charlene, but, as a board member and a candidate.
Nuh-uh. Fred and you, not me.
Okay,
I'm not
Fred,
running.
Sheila, and I.
It's your
Yeah, it's you
signatures I
three.
got. I didn't get my signatures, I got yours.
I knew you were part of something. But anyway, so that was something that we need to think about. He made a suggestion that we contact, or one of us, or all of us contact John Warren, because he's been in the same position. You know, he's been a superintendent running for county superintendent or something equivalent, so he might be able to give us a few little household hints on how to behave. I'm going up on the 18th to deliver petitions to him, so I called the office today, and of course it was closed by the time I got around to it. But I want to find out if he is going to be there on the 18th, because I would like to pick his brain and talk to him person to person, because I'm not a good, I don't learn well from the written word. I learn more well by listening, okay? But I want to show you this, and Cassie, you have this, right?
Yes.
This was,
It was
and they made a
fantastic.
big deal out of Shift Happens, okay? Because what this is, it's demographic
Graphic.
shifts that have happened in Arizona and in the national thing. And I looked up this guy, he is the head of this economics group. And they come with a A+ bill of ratings. So I'm assuming that all these things that he put on the slides are accurate. And so Carolyn emailed, that she had seen a lot of the data, but she thought it was very well presented. So we got Carolyn, and we've got, what's his face?
Rick Brammer.
Okay. Now, he did a much better presentation than I am, because I'm going to just whip through this as quickly as possible, because I'd like you guys to be sent a copy of it so that you would have it. Okay? Does that make sense? If we think as a board this is a good place, because this would be a good presentation tool for us. Anyway, so basically, it's going to start with state and national demographics, and it's going to go with state socio stuff, like the changes in the state, and then it's going to go into school enrollment and choice. ESA is definitely hit in this presentation. You two ladies remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here is the population trend for the U.S., all right, to 2060. And I will never live to see this, but it looks like it basically plateaus. Population, with the way things are going with immigration and the fewer people we have coming in, it's going to plateau. But look at what happens to the population under 18. Okay? Back in 2005 and 2007 and 2015 and 2025, there were more kids, basically, in the population. By the time we get to the 2060, it's going to look really different. Does that make sense? Carolyn, I hope you're going to add things in as we go along here. Okay, so we got that? This one was very, very interesting. This is the Arizona population. The purple line was a prediction from 2022. Okay? Then the other three lines are the high, medium, and low predictions for going forward for 2025. And if you look at the low projection, it plateaus right away. It doesn't change. Arizona's not going to change. So basically, our schools are not going to change. If anything, they will by the red line. We might be even going backwards. And there's some stuff along the side for you guys to look at a little bit later. All right, but you guys see the demographics here for Arizona? Okay. Then we have this one, current population distribution. We of course know that Maricopa County has 2/3 of the population of the state of Arizona. Look at the big old green dot, right? Compared to Kingman's dot for Mojave County it would be like Jupiter's and Mars, right? You can put 1 million Mars in Jupiter, right? So Maricopa County is considerably bigger. They had a population increase of 330%. Then we come down to Arizona counties. Mojave County had a 144% increase. Yavapai, Yuma, it looks like a lot of this is in the western sort of part of the state. But Pima County had a huge increase. And they're saying, what he brought out was that the increase was because of housing, cheaper housing. So the people moving into to Mojave County are paying more for houses. So there are obviously people moving in who are established, they're either retired, they have a big 401k or something, because they're affording houses that are $500,000+. All right, does that make sense to everybody? So just because it looks like we're having a big increase, we don't have a big increase of kids. Because more than likely, these are older people. Future population change, Maricopa will continue, and Pinal County will continue. Mojave, Pima, Yavapai counties, and other rural counties are going to lose. Does that make sense to everybody? Ladies, am I doing this right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Here's Arizona population under 18. Notice what happens. So it doesn't say much about possibilities of building a new school.
Won't be a need.
No.
Okay.
And this is where I would make a comment. You'll notice the red line, which is the percentage of children under 18 compared to the population of the state. So, that it plateaus in terms of number of students, but as a percentage of the total population, it takes a big dive, much more than the U.S. rate.
Much bigger.
On that other graph.
Yeah. And you guys will get a chance to look at all these, those of you who haven't seen it before. Yeah. I don't think there was much I wanted to comment on this slide. Future populations under 18. Basically, Maricopa County is going to even have a decline.
It even stays the same,
Yeah. It's not even, the state is going to go downhill for 18-year-olds, okay? Or kids under 18. This was very interesting. The Great Recession was 2008.
8.
Yep.
2008.
Yep.
And so birth rates basically bottomed out. Okay? If you look at this we can just go by the state of Arizona. Maricopa pretty much stayed with us, but this is basically where we're at, right? And it's gone down again since, What happened in 2014? Anyway, COVID had some stuff to do in it, and there's a couple other things, but it's gone down again. So what we heard at the strategic planning that Sheila, oh, I don't know whether it was Sheila that pointed it out or Dr. Stewart that pointed it out when we were at strategic planning, that the birth rate is what is really killing education. Funding has a lot to do with it, but if you don't have the kids coming into school, you can't get the $5,000 per kid to afford a teacher. All right? And this is not looking good. But anyway, not being pessimistic, because the kids that are being born have to be smarter. Here's Arizona versus US. Notice that US birth rates will stay at a plateau, and Arizona continues to go down the closer we get. This has happened. This is happening. Okay, just moving on. Here's a population. This is interesting. Baby boomers, we're going to make that red line go up, right? But if you look at the birth rate, it pretty much stays stable. All right? Does that make sense? Okay. Here we go. This is the state socioeconomic conditions. Here we go. If you look at job, non-farming, okay, the red is negative and the blue is positive. So we had the Great Recession, which is the first group of red. And then we had a little bit of red around COVID. And look at 2025. So the jobs are not increasing. Okay? And you go down to the second graph in Arizona and at US. Arizona is blue. The US is the yellow or gold, whatever color you want to call that. And in 2025, the US had a little growth, but Arizona didn't. So the jobs are not here. The retired people are, but the jobs are not here. So when you call a plumber, you have to wait from sometime between 10 in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get your plumber there, right? Because
If you're
they're
lucky.
spread pretty thin.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. Okay?
Just got to know the right guy. That's
Well, some of us have learned to change the back of the toilet.
Ah.
Okay. Here's Arizona industry and employment. I thought this was interesting. Let's see, healthcare and social assistance, down the very, very bottom one. Look how it was
Yeah, I noticed
increasing, and now it's really slowed down. Construction, look at construction. No wonder we don't have prices on houses that we can afford. Government jobs, that's self-explanatory. Manufacturing, okay. And they have decline flip and all that stuff next to it. That kind of tells you that things are going strange a little bit. Again, we'll get you this and you guys can check it out. Consumer Price Index. The yellow line is all items except for shelter, right? Notice it's going up. The blue line is Phoenix, which doesn't concern us very much. But if you compare it, sorta, we're above the Phoenix at least is above the
National average.
the U.S. So things have gone up in Arizona faster than the U.S. And basically, I would say that for Phoenix and Mojave County, they got to be comparable. Because I don't know about your grocery bill, but sometimes I have to think twice about my peppermint patties. Here's some more housing costs, and this is why Carolyn's meeting with Sharon was so important, because if we can keep our teacherage to a place where teachers can afford it, at least while they're looking in the regular market, this would be good. Again, they don't have Mojave County or Bullhead City or even a rural county, because Flagstaff is no longer rural and neither is Prescott. But if you look at the national mean and you compare us to Phoenix or or even Tucson, you see the difference. Apartment rentals. Tucson is going down, but the rest of us are way above the national average. So no wonder we have 3 and 4 families in the same house. I bet our homeless kids are feeling that. Here, this is interesting. Arizona school-age population per household. Now, if you live in a mobile home, which is basically a lot of my neighborhood, it's down 13%. The only place it went up is if we have someplace that has units of 50 more, the rentals, apartments, and we don't have any of those in Bullhead.
Not yet. One's coming.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you look at this, 2018, 2023 are the comparison years, and you see what's happening, right? Okay, so school-age population is going down. This is ESA. Okay. Here's charter schools in blue, district schools, that's us in red.
Doesn't even have ESA on it.
Not yet.
This is just charter.
Yeah, this is just
public.
charters, yeah. ESA is a little bit, I think. Okay, but you see what's happening here? And this is why we had $1 million to cut from our budget, because we're losing kids. Enrollment by grade. K2. Can you see K2? What's happened to the blue line?
Mm-hmm.
That's what gives us the influx of kids. That's what Carolyn was telling us earlier this year, is that things are not looking good because we cannot replace the 8th graders going out the door. All right? I thought this was very interesting. This is a
Yeah,
very
and this is the
interesting
one
chart.
that does include the ESA things,
Yeah, it
because this
does.
is the public schools.
Yeah,
And that would include public charters.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's ESAs. I knew ESAs were in here. Look at where ESAs jumped. Right after COVID, basically.
Well, it's because of the change in the law. I mean, it really doesn't have to do with COVID. It has to do with making them universal
Yeah.
ESAs as opposed to specifically oriented to special needs students. So
But they-
that's what happened in 23, 24.
Thank you. Basically, what we were told too was the change in the law did have some, but basically, the pre-K, K1 and 2 are being homeschooled. A lot more of those kids are being that age group are being homeschooled, kept home from public schools or even charters. Okay? A lot of horseback riding in there, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, 90,000. Okay. Here's empowerment accounts again. This is ESAs.
It's like grade level, it's interesting.
grade
Fourth,
level.
third and fourth are the highest, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look at the K. Look at K. It's down below, a lot of it. 11th and 12th graders, I don't know what, I'm not familiar enough with high school demographics to know why those are that way. But there we go. Then they went into some things that affect our enrollment. We have a district population. We have the schools, the districts, for different schools. They were talking here, or he was talking here about having to close schools and make serious decisions by school board members. And this was the kind of the how you decide how many kids you're going to get. Okay? So I wanted to suggest, and there's a question there, I would want to suggest that we use something like this and as a basis to go in. So we would take a projector in this slide and we talk about these slides. We can separate the slides out. We can take part of the slides that we want and part of the slides we don't. But I would like to show that. But I thought that was really, really something that I got out of the conference. And that was actually the pre-conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pre-conference.
Then it got better. The conference itself was excellent. They talked about community, but you guys went to different things.
Well, you two went to the same one, I went to a different.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which ones did you go to, Barb? You remember? It's
It was-
it's
yeah.
8:30 probably. And we're,
Yeah, mine was just data information, basically the same thing we saw here and stuff.
The good news is they gave us all of the PowerPoints.
yeah. We have
So
access
if
to
anybody
all of
wants to
them.
look at the PowerPoints, that was really nice.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where guys have any kind of questions, or would you consider using this set of slides as part of your presentation for going out and talking to people?
Certainly, more information that we have
Yeah.
to go and talk to people, but,
It's a place to start.
oh, yeah.
To me, it was very sobering to look at that and see the shift in demographics.
It would be interesting to see if Mr. Warren has any kind of information on Mojave County
Yeah.
that we could add to this. But I think it's a place to start. That and Sheila's list sound good. The other thing that, and I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of your time, but did you guys see this letter? I copied this letter that Carolyn sent us. What was this one? Nation's 9-year-old children were at the cusp of kindergarten when COVID shut down.
Yeah.
Remember this one?
Yeah, it was an article.
I don't want to take any more of our time, but I would go back and look at this letter because it reinforces a lot of stuff that's here about kids and learning and all that kind of stuff. And
Do you know when that was sent out roughly?
Yeah,
2
it was
days
this
ago.
week. It was this week.
Yesterday or the day before.
The subject says food for thought.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that
Okay.
email, it says
Yeah.
food.
It said
food for
one
thought.
day ago, so I'm guessing yesterday or the day before.
And it kind of, the data kind of don't support what we all thought. We thought that the students who would suffer were those kinders and first graders
And they-
from COVID, from the, when they were in kindergarten and first grade during COVID. And yet the data shows that the kids who are suffering are not those kids, because those are the kids, excuse me, that are now in third, fourth, and fifth grade. The kids who are struggling are the kids who are,
It says here,
are,
it says here.
yeah, are the older kids, the
It
ones who
says, but
were.
13-year-olds who experience
Yes.
serious disruptions in their elementary years are still struggling with their performance in reading.
And that would be our 8th graders.
Yeah.
That would be our 8th graders.
On a key national test essentially the same as children 50 years ago. So basically, this is from, what do they call it, NEEP?
Yeah, NEEP.
Basically,
NAEP,
this
yeah.
is a letter to read. It's just very, very interesting. And that's my input for the evening.
And don't forget this one.
Oh, I get this one too?
Yeah.
It's not on it's not in pink.
Yeah, I know, I did it in the wrong place. I'm
Okay.
sorry. She's
Um,
not here, but you could still announce it.
Crystal Diamaneo.
Oh, we'll have to get Mrs. Vogt to say the name because I don't know how to say it.
Anyway, another junior
Julie.
high person, a 7th grade
Diamant.
teacher, junior high. It doesn't say what she was teaching, but she was
ELA.
ELA, all right. So now we have math, science, and ELA. So we're just looking for a good social studies result. But anyway, I'm going to pass this down. Her gift certificate, I do not want you guys to rip off her gift certificate.
Oh, come on.
It's okay, I'm going to pass it down, but she had 19% highly proficient, 24% proficient, and only 38, whoops, am I
Yeah.
reading that right?
She had a reduction.
She had a reduction.
A reduction
in
of
minimum
38%. So basically, it's on the screen. Never mind. I'm not going to pass it. This is the kind of stuff that I was looking for when I offered the first TV. And so now 3 of the TVs have gone to.
No, you had 2 TVs.
Well,
Two
two,
TVs,
the
yeah.
3 of the
Yeah.
3 of the things.
Yeah, they have gone to Fox Creek teachers.
Yeah.
Haven't all 4 of them gone to Fox Creek?
Yes, all 4. have
All
gone to
4 of
Fox
them.
Creek
Yeah, because
teachers.
this one goes to Fox
So,
Creek.
maybe, I was thinking maybe this is not the best program to continue. But if 4 teachers can do this and set an example for others, maybe it's just the start of the program. Maybe we should be rewarding these teachers for this kind of progress. I know it's a big, big pain in the butt for Jennifer to put these numbers together. And maybe $250 isn't the right amount, maybe just a nice Starbucks card would be, but
That's close.
Yeah.
there's something for us to think about for fall, whether we should continue this program or not. Because I've seen the 4 people who have come to us with this improvement have done incredible improvement. If the whole junior high had done this, imagine we wouldn't have had to go through all that down stuff in the beginning. So maybe this is not something that we should just dust off or put aside. Maybe we should continue to do that.
People like to be recognized. I don't think it necessarily has to be huge, a big thing. Sometimes it's just a good job shout out or a post or something. But yeah, I think they should be recognized.
If you won a TV, would you take it home? With a smile on your face?
Oh, of course.
With a smile on your face?
Of course.
So anyway, there we go for that. All right. Anything else, board? I've done a lot. I've done I said 15 minutes, and I've done at least 30. Sorry.
I just would like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to go to that conference, because they're not just good for school board stuff, they're good for life stuff.
Yeah.
And to meet people from all over the state and really hear that they've got the same problems that we have,
Some
really
of them worse.
lets us know that all the employees are doing what they can, and it's nice to know it's not just us.
Yeah. And some of the districts are even in a worse shape than we are.
Quite a
listening-
few, quite a few.
Quite a few of them, listening to him, sitting at dinner and talking with him and stuff, and it was very interesting to see how many districts are really struggling right now.
And how lucky we are that we
Yeah.
do have a good board that,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
really considers things and stuff.
And we
so.
sat down, where was that guy from? Mingus Mountain?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, he was the only one
Yeah.
on, on the school board. What did he say? He was liberal or something?
Yeah.
And he was fighting his school board, and we don't fight up here. And some of us are liberal and others of us are conservatives, and it's okay, because we don't fight each other.
Yeah.
Which is something I learned, yeah. Okay, moving on, so we get out of here.
Yeah.
Item 3.24, approval of the consent agenda. Is there anything that needed to be pulled from the consent agenda to talk about? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Barb Zarzaki.
Hi, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, item 4.1.
I make a motion that we take sections E and F policy advisory revisions and move them, table it to our July meeting.
It's second reading.
Oh, it's only a reading, I'm sorry.
It's second,
This is
no,
second
this is
reading.
the
Yeah,
second
this is
reading,
the
so it's
reading.
the adoption.
Yeah,
So this is
okay.
Second reading
Yeah.
is adoption.
You're looking for G.
You're thinking about G.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is.
can I have a motion to adopt it, the policies, E and F policies?
Madam President,
as
I
revised?
make a motion that we adopt and delete the policies per the attachment presented to us this evening.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Barb Zarzaki.
Hi, Sheila Burnett.
Okay, moving on to
10.1.
10.1, Carolyn, or Dr. Stewart, I guess I should be pointing.
That's okay. Madam President and board members, I have put for your consideration the proposed budget for fiscal year '27. And you will notice a couple of key things. Number one, the tax rate went down again, which probably should make taxpayers happy.
Why is that? That our tax rate?
It gets determined by, it gets determined at the county and at the state. I mean, we don't have any control of it. It has to do with the assessed valuation, which went up in Mojave County. Other than that, I can't tell you what formula they use.
Seems strange if the assessed valuation goes up, the tax rate goes down.
Well, because it's spread out over, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. The other thing is, you'll notice for our ADM, even though there is a drop, it's not as significant as it's been in the last couple of years. So that's helpful. And if you are looking at those percentages on the right-hand side, I will tell you that the one that drops 37.5%, the 2,200 staff, drops partly because, remember, in our cost savings, cost cutting for next year, I moved positions, 2 positions over to Classroom Site Fund, one of which was one of those positions. So, it looks nice on the right-hand side, but it's also because of our cost savings. Let's see. Another one
53%
is
drop.
the preschool program, and I'm trying to remember why that dropped as much as it did. 900.
Is that the 53%?
Yeah.
The other programs.
Yeah, and we don't do, oh, I know, 630 is 6:30 is our leadership positions. So if you remember, we cut out almost all of the leadership stipends. So that's a big significant piece of that. You will notice that the special ed instruction has gone up. That's because we needed to add a teacher, and because our SPED enrollment is now over 400 students. I think it's in the neighborhood of 420. Is that not right, Kate?
No, it was my report said 448 or something like that.
Just a hair over 20% of our student population. Okay? And that's not a bad thing, it just is. I mean, it just is what it is. So, it went up. Anyway, you notice that at the bottom line, when it's all said and done, in spite of my projections that our budget would drop by 10%, it's down by 1.1% for next year. Thanks to some good work on our folks to bring that ADM up. Okay?
Do we know what the rollover is going to be for next?
Right now, it's in the neighborhood of 550,000. So, yeah. Second page, please. And this just shows you the same information in a different format. On the left-hand side, it breaks it down by maintenance and operation, instructional improvement, and all those kinds of things. Instructional improvement is down by 89% because we completed our contract with instructional empowerment. And classroom site fund went up, or is going up for next year, and that is because rather than distribute the funds in classroom site fund that had been budgeted for teaching positions, in the past I've just rolled that into the distribution to the other teachers. This time, with the approval of the committee and your approval, I'm rolling that money over to help pay for the teaching positions that we're moving over into classroom site fund for next year. So that $400,000 and $350,000 covers those additional salaries over there. And I did the calculations and did that budget this week, and teachers will still, because we got the dollar figure, so teachers will still get a nice opportunity for performance pay at the end of the year. I think the difference is maybe $700, a little bit less, but not much. This year it was 6,000 something, so that's a significant performance pay for them. And I'm sorry, right offhand, I don't remember what other is. I'm going to have to think about what other is that went from $1 million to $844,000. I'm sorry, I don't remember offhand. So anyway,
Question.
yes.
On the right-hand side where it says extracurricular activities, fees, and tax credit, 64,000 this year, and you projected 56,000 for next year. Those tax credits, that's not money, that's not the tax credit from people donating the money.
Yes, it is.
We got $64,000 donated.
No, that was our balance. Okay, that was our balance. So what I have put there for, estimating for next year is what's left in that right now. Because I don't have any way of projecting what, what we might pull in for tax credit. So what you see is the budget for the current year was the balance at the beginning of this year. Okay, and then we had tax credits donated, we had expenditures, and so what you see there for the projection for next year, I can't project more than we actually have.
So it wasn't like we collected 64,000 this
No.
year, this has been over accumulation.
Yeah,
of years
it's an
and stuff.
accumulation,
Okay.
yeah. That's a great question, Barb, because I'm, when I do something like, it's not on this one, but for example, there's the $1 million and the difference that is that other over there on the left side. indirect costs, so let's use that one. So indirect costs, current year estimated was $389,000. That's money from grants. That when they write the grant, when Jen writes the grant, she can set aside money for indirect costs. So for instance, 3 of our people in the business office, part of their jobs are involved in managing those grants. So part of their salaries are paid for through the grant through indirect costs. So the $389,000 was the money that was the balance in there at the end of last year again. And right now, the balance is $255,000. As the grant funds come in, money goes into that account and money goes out. So, for those that fluctuate like that, that's the only thing I can use is what we actually have. If we had on here, for instance, the food service, I build that budget based on anticipated expenses, okay, and anticipated revenue. In this case, I can't anticipate, in these cases, I can't anticipate revenue. So the numbers represent kind of different things depending on which account it is, which fund it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions?
This budget was built using the preliminary budget document. Now that the legislature and the governor have settled on a budget, we will get the actual budget document sometime in the next 2 weeks. So when we post the when we post the budget for adoption, for which we'll need the hearing in July, I will use the actual final document as opposed to this preliminary one. It will be very similar, but it should have a couple of items on there that were actually approved in the state budget that we couldn't count on until they approved that budget. So this is proposed, so if anything changes in the formulas, the actual budget may look a bit different than this, but not much. Hopefully it will look a little bigger.
Do I have a motion to approve the proposed budget for school year or?
Fiscal year.
Yeah, fiscal year, excuse me, fiscal year 27.
I make a motion we accept or adopt the proposed budget for fiscal year 27.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Zabrowski.
Aye, Fred Rushton.
Charlene Diaz.
I, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 10.2, policy revisions, PA 961 to 1046 and others.
And this is section G, so this may be the one you want to table.
Yeah. Barb, do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we table 10.2 policy revisions, PA 961 through 1046, and others to the July meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Zabrowski.
Aye, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Okay. 10.3, emergency installation of sidewalk concrete at Diamondback Elementary School. They got sidewalks up there.
They do have sidewalks, but 2 years ago, when the inspector from the trust walked all of our campuses, one of the things he was looking at was looking at our sidewalks, and we had things that are not in compliance, safety compliance. It's taken us a bunch of time, but we finally got SFD approval to replace some of those sections, while sections right next to them continued to deteriorate and and now are truly unsafe. And so as we replace the originally determined to be unsafe sections, and these other sections now are as bad or worse than the ones being replaced, I want my kids safe. And so I'm asking for your emergency approval that while the crew is there replacing the things SFD will pay for, that we go ahead and replace on our dime with our capital money those other sections. And we got to, if you approve it, we have a quote, and I have the money available. So, while they're there, it's like, let's fix it while they're there. But it really kind of is an emergency, and we need it done. So I'm hopeful that you will approve this as an emergency action.
What is the value?
$27,500.
Less than $28? That's good.
Have you bought concrete lately?
No. Thank
Do I
you.
have a motion to put concrete sidewalks, emergency installation of sidewalks at Diamondback?
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the emergency installation of the concrete repairs.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
Aye, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 10.4, social worker position at Coyote Canyon.
Madam President and board members, Jen wrote our grant proposal or grant application for the competitive school safety grant and requested renewal of our SRO at Fox Creek and 4 counselor positions. And we also included a request for a social worker for Life Academy. All of them were approved, including the new social worker position. So that's not a position we have currently approved, and so I'm recommending that you approve it as a new position in our district to be paid for the next 3 years with the safety grant.
Madam,
Do I have a motion for a social worker position at Coyote Canyon?
I make a motion that we add a social worker at Life Academy.
Let's say Coyote Canyon, please.
Okay, Canyon.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
Aye, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 10.5, possible pre-approval to purchase Teach Town for special education life skills classroom.
Madam President and board members, this is a curriculum, and Kate has spent quite a bit of time researching. We've had it on display. In fact, some of it's on display out in the lobby right now. But they have to be on display for 60 days, and the 60 days isn't up until the 30th or the 1st. And so we didn't want to wait until the middle of July to get this ordered. So I'm, just like we did last month on our science materials, I'm asking you to give pre-approval to purchase this program as long as there are not considerations or objections from the public prior to the end of the public display.
Excuse me. Do I have a motion to pre-approve the purchase of Teach Town for special education life skills classrooms?
I'll make a motion to pre-approve the purchase of Teach Town for special education life skills classroom.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
Aye, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 10.6, 2026-27, trust proposal acceptance form.
Madam President and board members, this is annual action to continue. Yeah.
No.
Here are our bills from the trust. Actually, the invoice for next year. I do want to call attention to, I think it's on page 2. We have used our attorney's advice a lot this year, a lot. And so you can see that our bill for next year is $65,000. I will tell you, having some handle on what it costs per hour if we were to hire an attorney on our own, we would not have gotten anywhere close to the amount of advice we've gotten this year for this amount of money. So I just want you to be aware that being able to have legal advice through the trust is extremely valuable. never mind everything else in here that's valuable to us as well. So the total, does it have the total, Cass? Yeah, it has the total. So $399,000 a year for us to continue to work with the trust for liability and property insurance.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the trust proposal acceptance form PAF.
For 2026,
For,
27?
yes, for 2026, 27.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzaki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 10.7, 2026-27 Alliance Coverage Acceptance Form.
Madam President and board members, the Alliance is workers' comp. It's part of the trust association, and so our cost for this coming year would be $143,187. And I will mention that relative to this and to the trust, when we participate in training that the trust or the Alliance puts on each year, we get a percentage reduction. So, we pay the whole thing up front, and then as our folks, or by the end of the year, as we have attended a certain number of trainings, which we do every year. So transportation attends at least one, facilities attends at least one, I attend at least one, IT does, and so we get 5% off our bills. So that's kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I recommend that we accept this.
Okay. I don't have a motion here.
Well, Madam
I feel
President?
We need to have a motion, don't we? I need a motion to approve the Alliance Coverage Acceptance Form.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the Alliance Coverage Acceptance Form for 26-27.
All
I'll
those,
second the motion.
all those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzaki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 10.8, approval of student parent handbooks for school year 2026-27.
Madam President and board members, I did go ahead and put this on this agenda rather than wait until July, simply because there are very, very, very few changes. The changes involve like a new calendar or a new events calendar for each site. Otherwise, it's like single word changes throughout those documents because we've honed these in pretty well over the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm hopeful that you will adopt them.
I make a motion that we approve the student parent handbook for the year, school year 2026-27.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barb Zarzaki.
I, Sheila Burnett.
Item 11.1, future topics. Are there any future topics we'd like to have?
I think we should follow up on what you were talking
About a board retreat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Can you help us with that? Or maybe
Sure.
ASBA can help us with that.
I can help you with it too.
And Lance can help us if
Sure.
we buy him coffee in the morning.
He doesn't drink coffee, I don't think.
Well, okay.
We'll figure it out.
Tea.
Yeah.
Up and coming, were there any other future topics? Right. Okay, up and coming. I don't remember, when I looked at this, I don't remember. Oh, I know. Do you want any of us to be at the new teacher stuff? The new teacher,
Ooh.
it's on here as an induction, but I know there's other new teacher meetings.
We'll have to ask Jen, so we can ask her and let you know.
Because if we do, we as a board need to get something on our calendar.
Sure. Jen will be back tomorrow,
usually do the
so
breakfast,
she can
too.
get, I'll have her
That's on
let
the
you know.
20th.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in
Okay.
case. I know
Sure.
I know we'll probably be at the breakfast.
You'll be at the
but,
breakfast, sure.
But if you'd like us at the
Induction? Mhm.
induction, that would be
Okay.
something
I'll
we
have
could
her, I'll have her-
probably be there.
Yeah, I'll have her get in touch with you about that.
Okay. All
Seven
right.
thirty.
Relative to this, to any calendar or whatever, I would remind you that I will be out of state next week. Kate's going to be gone part of the time, Amanda is already gone, so Jen will be in charge next week.
We can do that.
I'll be available for, you know, if there are emergencies and things, but I'll be out of state.
The breakfast.
What, an hour?
And Cass. Yeah, so.
Okay. Time and date for our next meeting.
Can you go back to that calendar for one quick minute, please?
I'm sorry, which one?
To the calendar. Oh, okay, no problem.
Future, calendar?
Thank you.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
all right. Future meeting would be July 9. Everybody can be here on the July 9th, or do we need to change this over?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
I'll be a little jet lagged, but I'll be good.
And everybody's going to read all 439 pages of that stuff, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Please don't.
I'm going to look for blue. I'll look for the blues, okay?
Yeah, look for the fixes, not the deletes.
Yeah. So we're okay with that meeting time?
Yep.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion when we adjourn this meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sobransky.
Hi, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
Hi, Sheila Burnett.
We are adjourned.
Thank you all.